So how good does that Strandberg Tremolo and general hardware perform compared to something like an Ibanez? I've been fortunate enough to test 3 different Strandberg guitars that feature their tremolo system. One of the really cool, unique things about this trem is that it works with a multi-scale guitar. So if you're looking at buying, let's say, a Kiesel, they currently don't offer any multi-scale instruments with a tremolo. Strandberg is really one of the only companies currently that is offering that. The 3 different models that I've played is the older OS or overseas Korean-made original behind me. I've also tested a Bowden Classic and a Bowden Neck-Through Fusion. The first thing to point out about Strandberg hardware is that currently there is no budget level bridge. So any Strandberg you buy, from the Classic, which is the most affordable one, all the way up to that Neck-Through Fusion, which is over $3,000, the hardware is exactly the same. And I think that that's really commendable from them as a company. One of the things to look out for with companies, especially like Ibanez comes to mind, if you're buying a more budget Ibanez, especially something below the prestige line, a lot of times you'll get hit with like discount budget hardware, which is obviously going to suck a bit of the tone out of the instrument, and it's also going to potentially run into reliability and longevity issues later on down the road. So have no fear, any Strandberg that you're buying is getting that better hardware. There is no penalty there if you buy a Classic instead of a Pliny. Also, the Strandberg Tremolo system will do everything you want a tremolo to do. So yes, they will flutter. Yes, they will do dive bombs plenty deep. And yes, they are very articulate and you can use them to control the pitch. You hear that in like Pliny's playing all the time, where he'll play a single note and then bend up or down or manipulate it with the bar extremely accurately, keeping those notes in tune. The Strandberg Tremolo system is also built from mostly aluminum components, so it has a very light, almost kind of like bouncy sort of a feel to it. It's also worth noting that the tremolo arm has an adjustable set screw that makes the tension or tightness of how much that trem arm is held in the tremolo really quick and easy to adjust. I absolutely love that it includes that feature. One problem I run into on my Ibanez's especially is that once those bushings start to wear, the tremolo arm can get really loose, and then you've got to put on new bushings, which is great, but now the new bushings are going to be extremely tight. So I happen to like it extremely tight, so that is kind of convenient, but it is something to be aware. So, the fact that the Strandberg features that tensioner is a really cool feature. With the tuners located down at the bottom of the bridge, it's also really nice as well. If you're at a gig and you need to make a larger tuning adjustment, you don't need to go find an Allen key and unlock the top locking nut in order to make that larger tuning adjustment. All Strandberg guitars also come with a T-wrench, so if you need to change strings quickly, that T-wrench will fly and get the strings off really quick. I really can't say enough about how great and well thought out this system is to include the T-wrench. The Strandberg Tremolo system has gone through a little bit of evolution along the way. I first got interested in the company and was checking them out when they were using ball-bearing pivot points on the trem, and that whole system just seemed way overly complicated and kind of scared me off. I've always used guitars that feature just a simple knife edge, and I'm happy to report that they made that change to a simpler knife edge, which means that you can then replace the posts if they start to get worn. You can also replace the knife edges if they start to get worn, and Strandberg customer support is fantastic. So if you need a new component, you can get in touch with them if something's broken, and they will send you a replacement really fast. I had that exact thing happen with my OS. The post was cracked. Whoever had it before me had damaged it. I got in touch with them. They sent me 2 posts free, no questions asked. So Strandberg customer service is first class. So now that we're about halfway through this video, if you're digging it, please hit like and subscribe. Do all the YouTube nonsense, helps my channel continue to grow. Here, A Minor Error is the creative home for everything that I do musically, which is original progressive metal music. It's also product reviews and talking head videos like this, as well as free music lessons. So those are the things that I cover. I'll also put a little link. You can check out my new single called World Minus One. A lot of lead lines played on my OS original behind me, and would really appreciate if you took the time to check it out. So now that we've talked about the good things about the Strandberg Tremolo system, I will touch upon a couple of the problems that I've run into with it. First is the locking nut design at the top. The way the locking nut works at the top is it's been secured with a Phillips head screw, and then on top of that screw is this loose kind of silver disc that sits in there. The string then runs on top of that silver disc, and then there's a bolt that locks it on top of it. The problem with this design is obvious. It's easy, one, to potentially lose those silver discs. I also run into a problem with my Bowden 8 metal where the angle at the top of the nut going into that locking saddle is so extreme that the string then bumps into this silver disc, and I can't get the string to go through. It's really quite strange and quite odd. I don't have that problem with my OS original, but I do with my Bowden Metal 8, and I also have ran into the problem of the strings not getting locked down correctly. Sometimes, especially when the strings get older, they will just start to slip. I've been at gigs where all of a sudden the string just won't stay in tune, and I'll see it just dropping flat and flat and flat, and then it'll just slip clear out of the nut. It's a really odd thing that I've never had happen with any other locking nut. I've had it happen repeatedly on my original, so it's just one of those kind of strange things where if the strings are new and fresh, that problem doesn't happen, but as they wear, all of a sudden it'll slip. Another issue is that this tremolo is not a true double locking system. It locks at the top, but then there's just the ball ends resting in the bridge down at the bottom. The locking nut at the top also has to go through a 0 fret and a nut. So since it's not a true double locking system the way something like an Ibanez would be or a typical Floyd Rose, the tuning stability isn't as good as those other systems. So if you abuse this system, it is possible to knock it out of tune. It's not like an Ibanez system especially, which is just totally lock solid and won't go anywhere once it's in tune. For me, I got in the habit of retuning before each set. I used to play in a cover band where we played 3 50-minute sets a night, so I just knew I had to take an extra 30-40 seconds before the start of a set to go through and double check, make sure it was locked in tune. So those are my thoughts and my opinion on the Strandberg Tremolo system. I do think it's a really well made system and I do really like it, but it's not perfect. I absolutely appreciate that Ola took the time to engineer and develop a tremolo system to work on a multi-scale guitar that's mass-produced that really isn't offered by any other company right now, and I think it definitely gives Strandberg a little bit of a cut above other companies. At this point, I'm just hoping he makes an 8-string with a tremolo. That's kind of the thing that I've been hoping for. I don't even know if that's possible or not, but I think it'd be super cool.